How's it going? I'm Jared Gillis. Welcome to another All About RVs. Today, I'm going to be tackling some comments and questions, things that are coming up regularly about things that I'm wrong about. What about the new RV5? Is it the latest and greatest? How did we use non-heated batteries in cold environments? And when is some of that new gear you talked about at the beginning of the year going to be available for purchase? So we're going to look at that and more. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the list. So now the first series of comments comes from the last video where I talked about having an auto changeover propane regulator on your RV. And so the comment is, I believe you are wrong on the propane selector. They have to be manually switched when the tank is empty, only draws from the tank that is selected. Those switches are not auto. You choose which side you want to use, down is off. And I think this is part of the confusion that is out there. These propane regulators are more faulty, I think, than people realize, and the auto changeover feature is one of the things that can break, and you might still be getting propane, but you just don't realize that that function's not working on your regulator anymore. You pull up the ones that are for sale out there and you can see that even in their name, they're an auto changeover. And we've been using it this way for years, hundreds and hundreds of times in this way. So this selector is your primary selector. You select the side that you want to be primary, it will draw off that side and give you a green indicator until it's empty, and it'll switch over to red. But it will auto change over to pull from this other side. So that's when you change your selector to make this the primary tank, and you can go fill your other tank that you just emptied. So you point the arrow towards the side that you want to be primary, and the indicator is just going to tell you if that primary tank has gas or if it's empty. So if yours isn't doing that function, it might actually be broken. I've replaced multiple propane regulators out there for multiple different reasons. We had one where, well, the one currently, the indicator for the green and the red was off, so it wouldn't give us the indication of when the tank was empty or when it was full. So that's why I bought this one. And then when I got this, I realized I can just turn that dial and get it back into the proper orientation. But that's just one of the things that can fail in here. Another thing that's pretty common is that you don't get the amount of propane that you should out of here. So your oven will light, but your furnace won't be working. Sometimes that comes down to your propane regulator. So that's one of the reasons why we have a backup one on hand. But there was a good comment on here about I should be checking this. This is from Rob. He says, hi Jared, you may want to check the operation of your spare LP regulator. He bought 12 of them. He is a tech. 3 of the 4 I had tried installing so far have been defective, problems with not flowing gas, stuck indicator, and faulty check valve. I no longer trust them, and they're past the return window. So that's one of the problems that you can have with getting backup equipment on hand. You don't know that it's bad and that you should have returned it until it's too late. So I'm probably going to swap this out, put it on the RV, make sure that it works, and then just use the old one as the backup because I know that it's working. A little bit goofy on the indicator, but if this went down and I couldn't get propane, I could just swap it out for the other one. So great recommendation, testing the backup equipment you have to make sure it's going to work out for you as a true backup. Now, this next one is a good question, and it's less controversial than the other ones we're going to be talking about, but it's a question about our non-heated battery bank inside of our non-heated compartment on the RV in freezing temperatures during that ice storm. So this is one of the comments. So you didn't explain how you overcame the issue with the batteries not charging below 32 degrees. Did it always get over 32 so your BMS and your battery bank would allow for charging? The graph you showed for weather sure looked like the temps were well below 32 for days. And it was well below freezing for multiple days in a row and down into the single digits. And we were still able to use our battery bank and even charge it during those days. So now the secret or the trick that we use that not everybody talks about or knows about is that when you use the batteries, you're drawing power out of the batteries. Even when it's freezing outside, they'll generate a little bit of heat. The cells themselves, the BMS, this inverter actually will generate some heat as well. So usually those are the things that you battle in the summertime, trying to get the heat out of here. But in freezing temperatures, just by using it, you're going to be generating heat and you're going to be warming those up. So we would just make sure to use the system before we went into that phase of needing to charge. So before the sun was up, before we fired up the generators, we would use the system, let it warm up a bit, and then it had no problem charging at all. These batteries, they do have low temp charge protection. So that way, if I didn't get those cells warm enough inside, it will protect it and stop that charge from damaging the battery. So it's a nice little trick to be able to use where we don't have to heat this entire bay or have heated batteries and still have our gear working for us, even those extreme temperatures, below freezing for multiple days down into the single digits. So we do have a couple more comments that we're going to get to, but let me tell you about today's sponsor, which is Incogni. It's a service that we like that's helped us stop scammers and thieves by scanning data broker databases for your personal information and submitting removal requests when your records are found. This has reduced some of our unwanted marketing emails and texts, and it keeps some of our personal information away from these data breaches. When I signed up, I was impressed at just how quickly it started working. They had hundreds of requests sent out immediately, and just within a couple of days, half of those requests were already met. And they don't just scan once, they scan repeatedly, and I'm up to 308 completed and 29 in progress. That's where they're removing my personal information from these lists, and that's exactly the problem that Incogni is solving. And they've even added more features like being able to custom go in and remove your information, where you can submit and have them remove you from these lists. So if you want to take your personal information back, there's going to be a link down in the description and in that first comment. Use code AllAboutRVs to be able to save 60% off the annual plan. So thank you to Incogni for sponsoring this video. So let's move on to our next one, which is a bit controversial, and it's questions that I get about the Bluetti RV5 system. It looks like a really impressive, very powerful solar setup for off-grid, and anytime that I've done a video about anything solar or batteries or inverters, I usually get a question or a comment about the RV5 this year. Usually the comments are like this: looks big and heavy and expensive, the Bluetti RV5 is the way to go. Here's another one: would love a review of the Bluetti RV5. I think it's one of the best and innovative items to come out for RV solar gear. So here's the truth about why I haven't done a review of it, and I did want to do a review of the RV5, and Bluetti did reach out to me to see if I wanted to do a review of the RV5. So where's the review of it? Short version, and in a nutshell, I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to do an honest review, and if that was the case, I didn't want to do a review. Just to be clear, I'm not trying to say anything bad about Bluetti. I like some of their gear, I like some of their products. I just wanted to be able to do an honest review, and I was sent talking points, and dealing with other companies in the past, I know that can be a slippery slope to being in a difficult situation, to where in the past I've had to send gear back to other companies because I didn't feel like I was able to give my true and honest review, and I didn't want to get in that situation. So let me give you my quick version of what I think about the RV5. It's an extremely powerful unit, but there were some things that I saw looking at the manual that gave me pause of why it might not always be one of my recommendations. Number one, I like the really high output. 5,000 watts out is extremely impressive. I love that they incorporated that you're not locked into their specific batteries. It gives you a lot of flexibility and the ability to change things in the future. I also liked the 12-volt output on it. I thought it'd be very good for RVs. A lot of the systems in this space will often undersize this so that you can't really use it for bringing in slides or putting down your leveling system on the RV. They had a really good output for that made it extremely usable. The things I wasn't a fan of that would have been interesting to check out in a review is, number one, the solar, you're kind of locked into a pretty low voltage from 12 to 50 volts. And because this is kind of an all-in-one unit, you're really kind of locked into that. You can't really change it. But the two big ones were, it's a 50 amp setup, but it only has one leg. And 50 amp RVs are two legs. A 30 amp RV is single, so this will be definitely oversized for a 30 amp RV, but you're missing that second leg for a 50 amp RV. You have it on the input, but you don't have it on the output. And with it being an installed system, it feels like we're going back 5 years to where we needed an SPS or a manual switch in order to make those work together inside of the RV. And since this is supposed to be a real easy solution, that was what they were aiming for, just something that you're able to easily put together for an RV. You lose that simplicity by not having that second leg output on this unit. So it felt like they were really close, a really high output. They put 50 amps into it. They just kind of missed the mark on having the two legs out and making it to where it's going to integrate into the RV. You lose the true integration that you get with a Victron system and just how simple it is to use once it's set up. And you lose the portability of the other units that they have out there. You kind of lose both ends of it. Doing a true and honest review, I don't think it would have followed all of the talking points that were there. Let's move on to the next thing that I've gotten quite a few comments about. This one's from Kipper. Did you get a date on the availability on the Camco Skylight? I would like to see more about those as well. Building a schoolie, and that sounds great. Tons of other comments about all the other gear that we showed. A lot of the Camco gear is coming out in April, so we can expect it around then. I'm gonna try and get my hands on a lot of that new gear just as quick as I can to be able to do reviews on, so you can make informed decisions on the gear that is out there. I know the tank sensors from Fathom were also a big item because it integrates into so much of the RV, and you can tie it into your Victron system or other monitoring software that's out there. So that looked really promising as well. I'm not exactly sure when that's coming out, but as soon as it does, I'm going to try and get my hands on it and give you a review. So I guess stick around because I'll give you as much information as I can as soon as I get my hands on the gear. So anyways, I think that's gonna do it for today. I hope some of this information helps you out, helps you enjoy RVing just hopefully a little bit more. So as always, if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will see you next video. Take care.